not true Christianity. It is not the Christianity of Jesus Christ. When he was attempted to be crucified, God, as he had promised him, saved him from death upon cross. And he migrated like other prophets in Israel had migrated during certain circumstances. And migrated as he had promised to the 10 lost tribes of Israel. And we were one of those. So while passing through us, he delivered his message, and this message had no element whatsoever of Trinity. It was a pure message of loyalty to one supreme being and worship to him and him alone. So we accepted him. Now, it was this Jesus who had prepared us for accepting Islam. Because previously we had different superstitious religions which, if we had stuck to them, we might not have accepted Islam. But it was Jesus, watching him from close quarters, being impressed by his holiness, etc. This is why we are so deeply obliged to Jesus. So when Islam came, we accepted Islam, there was no problem. So we have decided to continue to attribute us or to relate us to Jesus Christ. So we say we are Jewish, Muslim Christians. And then additionally, he gave him a piece of information which he also has mentioned in the book. He said, and do you know what we call Jesus? He said, no. We call him Jesus of Nazareth and Kashmir. So what do you mean by Jesus of Nazareth and Kashmir? He said, because he was born in Nazareth and died in Kashmir. So there are two important events in the life of a person, the beginning and the end. Now you can find it mentioned in the book I have just spoken of. You can inquire, this is a living person, still lives. You can inquire from him. He never read any Ahmadiyya literature. He was completely unaware of our concept of Jesus and his migration and so on. So he only mentioned it because of this surprise element in what he discovered. Right? Now already I think
yes,
we have it's interesting. This discussion is so interesting, you know. I find that time passing flying, you know.
Yes, I find the continuity that you're putting forward quite fascinating. If you consider that the formation, the original teaching of Jesus, as I've read it in history, and then you get the separation to the various sects, and then 400 years later coming together, the fusion, and the doctrines that got accepted, the doctrines that got thrown around. But it is interesting that obviously at the time when he delivered his original message, it passed out in this continuity, and it's come out with you, and to quite an interesting set of conclusions and viewpoints, which I find quite novel. Yes,
because there is more to it than what I have said.
Oh, sure.
Jesus has performed a pivotal role in the history of mankind, and that role is not yet over. And you will be surprised to hear what we understand by Jesus of history, of reality. What he did and what he was destined to do. You know, before his migration to India, it was prophesied 500 years or 550 years, about that period, by Buddha, that a Buddha would appear after 500 years or 50, I don't exactly remember, but 500 is definitely there, from me, but this time it would be a foreign Buddha. This you find written in the scriptures so clearly. So when Jesus appeared, he was exactly placed 500 years apart from Buddha. So when he migrated to India and Kashmir, we find a historical evidence in the annals of the Indian people of that period. It is not a history book referring to traditions of that period. It was an annal kept in writing by those people. India was very advanced in those ages because writing had already become well practiced at that time. So they kept their records, and their records are still to be seen in Indian temples here. Hindu temples, if you go to them, I have found one like this. Now, the interesting thing is, it said, the annals of about Raja Shalmahan, a king, contemporary Indian king of Kashmir, Indian king of Kashmir contemporary to Jesus Christ. Once he was out on a hunting expedition when he observed a few foreign people led by a person who appeared to be so holy, walking into the valley of Kashmir. He approached him and inquired from him who that person was. And the answer was, he was a prophet of God who was so ill-treated by his people that he was about to give up life. He was about to be killed when God has promised, saved him from death at their hands and made me to migrate to your country. The next question recorded is, it doesn't mention of 12 tribes. I mean, this is exactly what I'm quoting of the annals report. Next question raised was, what is the name of your religion? He says, love. And what is your name? Mashihu. Masiha, Messiah, Masihu is exactly the same thing. Even in in some Yugoslavia, in Albanian language and in Macedonian language, he is referred to as Masihu. So there is a natural slight change in pronunciation which is quite common in man. So his name was Masihu. So imagine all these things happening together. Jesus disappears there, reappears in Kashmir. Kashmir is awaiting him, in fact, because it had become Buddhist by that time. I mean, in large majority it had become Buddhist. So Buddha's message was that there to expect a Buddha of the second advent. So he must have been accepted as a Buddha. And the title Christ was foreign to them. So what we heard about Jesus Christ in exile in Kashmir was just a Buddha. But also we find the word Christ mentioned among the the records on the stone tablets of Tibet. I sent an MD scholar from America there to bring the photocopies of all these things back. But the Christian scholars also mentioned this fact, that Jesus' name, who traveled far and wide in Kashmir and the countries around, is definitely found in the historic archaeological evidence of that area. So he must have got completely confused with Buddha and identified so perfectly that gradually his title Christ was left out. Like, for instance, Hadhrat Masih Maud, the founder of the Ahmadiyya community, is always referred to us by Hadhrat Masih Maud, the promised Messiah. So this title is becoming more and more dominant. And the title of Imam Mahdi is used but seldom. So it happens in the religious history that one title dominates the other, and ultimately a person is identified only under that title. So he brought about not only the unification of the Jewish people, but he also brought about the unification of Buddhism with Christianity. And this has more to it than that. By doing that, he lost his entity, which was known to the Palestinian world, into a larger and bigger entity. He rose as a Buddha, and after that Buddhism, after Jesus Christ, Buddhism started to penetrate China and other Far Eastern countries, not before. This is also very important and interesting. And again, when you study the prophecies of Confucius and others before him, you are surprised to find that Buddhism was to be expanded into a larger religion. But already it had, because the Western scholars are so,